Greatest common factor. The greatest common factor of two or more numbers is the greatest factor that the numbers have in common. So let us find the greatest common factor, or GCF, of 60 and 42. We're going to do this using factor trees. So if I do the factor tree for 60, I can make 60 into 6 times 10. Then I can break that down again into 3 times 2, and the 10 can become 5 times 2. Now the 42, we can say that's 6 times 7. 6 is 3 times 2, and since 7 is prime, we'll just carry that down. So now that we have the factors trees done, to find the GCF, you would circle all the numbers that they have in common and multiply them together. So we can see that there's a 2 in both prime factorizations, so we will write that down. I also notice a 3 that they have in common, so I will write that down as well. And that happens to be all that they have in common, so 2 times 3 is 6 would be the GCF of 60 and 42. Now let's do the same procedure again now using 3 numbers. To find the GCF of 3 numbers, we just of course have to do 3 factor trees and are looking for a number that's common between all 3 sets. So I can write 16 as 4 times 4 and break that down again to 2 times 2 and 2 times 2. So that's the prime factorization for 16. 50, we can say 5 times 10, which I'll bring the 5 down, and I'll break 10 into 5 times 2. The 54, we can use 2 times 27 for that. I'll bring down my 2, say 9 times 3 for 27. And we got to break down that 9. So remember, keep breaking your numbers down until you can't break them down anymore, until it's just a bunch of prime numbers. So if I look at all the numbers here and look for what's common, the only number that's common between all 3 sets is a 2. So that makes the GCF of 16, 50, and 54 2. Now, another method of finding greatest common factor, which works well if the numbers are fairly small, is by just listing the factors of each number and then finding the greatest factor that they have in common. So 24, I can write that as 1 in 24. Just spread it out so I'll have lots of room in between to write more factors if there's any. But there's also 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and also 4 and 6, and that is all the factors of 24. Now if I do a similar procedure for 20, listing all the factors, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't go into 4, and 5. And that is all the factors. So now, if we circle the ones that they have in common, they have a 2 in common and a 4 in common. Now, of course, because we're looking for the greatest common factor, we would see that the GCF is equal to 4.